Hi, this is Emily Troutman from AidWorks, and I am looking at the U.S. Department of State's report to Congress on their Haiti strategy update. This report came out of the Office of the Haiti Special Coordinator, and it was published on February 1, 2015. And so what I'm going to do is just annotate it verbally, and then if you want to see my annotations on this update, you can look at my Document Cloud account. So I'm just going to basically read through it with you. So it says here the reports provided in response to the Assessing Progress in Haiti Act of 2014. So that directs the Secretary of State to coordinate and submit to Congress no later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of the act a 3-year Haiti strategy. So the requested strategy was prepared by the Department of State, it says, in cooperation with other U.S. government agencies, a whole bunch of them. And it mentions that the post-earthquake U.S. government Haiti strategy was originally adopted on January 3, 2011. So that's their main document that they work off of. And then it says here, this strategy was intended to be a living document, which I just think is kind of a cute way of putting what happened next, designed to be flexible and subject to adjustment. So we'll find out here further along what exactly are the flexibilities and adjustments that became necessary. So right away in this document, there's some really interesting kind of like language. And they start right away sort of in a defensive posture. So despite significant progress to date in advancing our strategy in Haiti, the U.S. government has encountered some obstacles to achieving its assistance goals. Yeah, we noticed. So for instance, procurement timelines have lagged. Okay, so it takes a long time to get stuff. Projects have been slow in getting off the ground due to internal factors such as major staffing shortages after the earthquake. Okay. Other challenges are external to the U.S. government and relate to the evolving political landscape in Haiti and shifts in government of Haiti priorities. Okay, so you mean adjustments and flexibility? So there's a problem with the strength in the Haitian public sector. Great. And the capacity to provide security. Well, that's them sort of mentioning that the UN still needs to be here. And then it says here the government of Haiti has lagged in undertaking several difficult but necessary reforms, especially in energy and justice. Okay. It says we can anticipate a continued lack of progress on reform measures. Okay, because Haiti has a reluctance to tackle entrenched interests in uncertain times. Yeah, just like another body I know, U.S. Congress. Anybody? Okay, so these obstacles and delays have necessitated a 3-year extension of the U.S. government strategy. They're going to need an extension. They're going to need an extension. Okay, so this is where they start to summarize what they've decided to do. It says, this is interesting to me, the most interesting part. The majority of U.S. government shelter funds, okay, they're not saying housing, they're saying shelter, have been dedicated to construction of permanent homes. Okay, great. And new settlement sites. Wow, permanent homes. The U.S. government strategy envisioned USAID and other donors funding 100% of the cost of constructing detached single-family homes on land provided by the government. So that's what they're talking about right here when they talk about Cap Haitian and Northern Corridors. Cap Haitian specifically, they're talking about the Caracol project, where they were going to build a factory and a port and some houses. And they did build some of the houses, and they built some houses in Port-au-Prince, but like a lot less than they wanted. So this is where they talk about why. It says the government of Haiti requested design changes to the size and amenities for the house, and that resulted in higher than expected costs, with total cost per house at the first 2 sites more than 4 times the original estimates, including the cost for construction management, and community development. I think it's really important here to mention that the design changes that the government of Haiti requested was toilets. They wanted flushing toilets, and that in particular caused some problems. And then, so that's what they call amenities. Okay. We're not talking about like granite countertops here. We're talking about flushing toilets. So for whatever reason, the US government decided to build a bunch of houses that either had septic systems or didn't have toilets. They had like group toilets, and the government of Haiti, I think rightfully said, hey, why don't we just put some plumbing in while we're at it? Changes to the size. I don't know specifically about what changes to size they requested, but I'd imagine that, they wanted something a little bit bigger. Our housing efforts have also met considerable delays due to land ownership disputes. Yeah, well, that just continues. Moreover, completed settlements face sustainability challenges related to community development and governance, as well as institutional weakness of Haiti, government of Haiti, who are going to be responsible for site maintenance. So I think that these are things that easily could have been predicted. For example, the sustainability challenges. Most journalists, including me, wrote from the very beginning about housing settlements that had been created post-disaster in other disasters, because of course the earthquake wasn't Haiti's first disaster, and those communities that are just like falling apart, basically, where people went in and said, oh, we're going to build this little neighborhood, and then they couldn't be maintained. But it's interesting that they kind of like turn it back to Haiti. This, I think, is kind of interesting here, where it says they face sustainability challenges related to community development and governance. Well, one of the biggest projects, they said that already, one of the biggest projects was making new settlement sites. I mean, if you're going to make a new settlement site, what you're making is a new community. So it doesn't make sense to say that it's the community's fault for not having a community governance when you just built a new community out of nothing. For example, in the north, they totally evicted these farmers, and they said, okay, we're going to build a bunch of houses here. Well, yeah, I mean, the community that was there was moved out of the way for another community. So just something to think about. So this sentence is just, wow, with experience, we have learned that this approach is neither cost effective nor sufficient to reach the intended number of beneficiaries. So this approach, I guess what they're talking about, I can only guess from what they've said here, but I think what they're saying is this approach, building houses, is neither cost effective nor sufficient to reach the intended number of beneficiaries. I think building houses in the way that they built houses, like in communities that never had houses, that was their strategy to kind of avoid the problem with land ownership disputes. I think they're seeing here that this isn't sufficient, cost effective, whatever, it's not working. So now they're going to tell us a little bit more about Caracol. So here it says, originally the government of Haiti requested USAID to study the feasibility of building a greenfield port in the region. I don't know about this term greenfield. This is a new term for me, and I've read a lot of the literature on this project. But anyway, they wanted to build a port in this area. And I don't know how much of it really came from the government of Haiti. Maybe it was just an idea. I know that mostly this project came from Bill Clinton. This was a Clinton project through and through. The idea was to make a sort of development utopia up in the north of Haiti, build a factory, build a power plant, bring in people. They brought in this Korean manufacturer who agreed to this crazy scheme, and now they're employing some people there, but they still haven't built the port, okay? So it says here, subsequent market analyses have demonstrated that building the new port would not be financially viable because of a lack of interest by potential private sector investors and port operators. Well, the US government has the money to build the port. We already put aside money to build this port, but obviously we didn't have enough money to build the port. And what they found really was that ultimately what they have found is that a port is not feasible there, physically. And Haitians said that from the beginning. Haitians who were familiar with the area said, yeah, I hiked along the coastline. There's no way you could put a port there. The waves are too big, it's rocky, this and that. So anyway, they're saying that this is a lack of interest. Then they have another reason why this port thing didn't go through. It says in 2003, then Prime Minister, then Prime Minister, I feel like this guy's going to be the fall guy. Then Prime Minister Laurent Lamont asked the United States to redirect its assistance to improve an existing but underutilized port in the northern city of Cap Haitian. To me, this makes huge amount of sense. We already have a port in the north. Maybe you could use this port. Maybe you could make it better instead of trying to build one out of nothing, which is what they were trying to do. That's why the US government has bought and created a power plant. We built a power plant. We built homes. We built a factory, all around this idea that eventually we would ship the shirts out of the factory from this imaginary port that never existed. And why did they build the power plant and the factory before they had the port nailed down? That's a really good question, okay? But anyway, it says the US government has adjusted its port development strategy accordingly. I'm not sure if that's true. I know about a month ago I was looking online and you could still see the job announcements for a port expert for this project. Like, they're still looking for someone who knows anything about ports to like come and work on this. So purely technical approaches to addressing energy sector problems will not bring about sustainable improvements. That is code. What they're saying is if we build power plants, there's no one to fix the power plants except us, because we are the ones who have the technical knowledge to do that. So we're going to keep having consultants basically doing that work. Electricity to Haiti. Haiti's government-owned electric utility can become viable only if the government of Haiti undertakes measures to address underlying management and financial issues. Okay, accordingly, the overarching objective of the U.S. government energy program is to partner with the government of Haiti to create an efficient, financially viable electricity sector that can satisfy current and forecasted demand. Strategic priorities include modernizing the sector by enhancing its commercial viability. That means making people able to pay their bills, improving sector governance, okay, and attracting private sector participation. So sector governance, I think that that's sort of like they're mentioning about how some people are getting their electricity in illegal ways and even running power plants off fuel that they're getting in illegal ways, or sometimes legal ways that aren't beneficial to us, like from Hugo Chavez. So parallel efforts include rehabilitation of damaged infrastructure, expanding generation, transmission, and distribution, and reducing losses. I mean, to me, all of that says that building a power plant in the middle of nowhere is probably a bad idea. And yet we have done that. That's what we did. We spent like, I think, at least $147 million on it right now. For at least the past 18 years, government of Haiti administrations have expressed their desire to modernize electricity, but past attempts to do so have been thwarted by entrenched interests, the people who are already in the business. The administration of President Martelly in 2011 signed an MOU with the U.S. government, World Bank, and IDB, reiterating their intention to reform the sector. The U.S. government funded $11 million for a transition management contract. Initial efforts of this assistance showed progress in reducing losses and increasing collection rates. However, the government of Haiti shifted the focus of the effort to implementation of a much weaker program of operation improvement and technical assistance. By the end of 2011-2014 assistance program, earlier gains have been reversed, and the government of Haiti's commitment to move forward with structural reforms is unclear. I think this paragraph is unclear. I mean, that to me, what's unclear is this paragraph. What are we talking about exactly? I mean, there's so much jargon in here. I think there's a lot that they're not saying, and I'm not an expert on the electrical system, but I'm sure there are some people out there who could tell us a little bit more about what this much weaker program is. Operation improvement and technical assistance. I mean, the government of Haiti shifted their focus. So I thought we were supposed to be flexible and adaptable here. Okay, 2010, the U.S. signed a memorandum of understanding with the government of Haiti and IDB to collaborate on the development of an industrial park, here it is, in the northern village of Karakol. Korean garment maker SAI, I think Saya, agreed to occupy over 80% of planned Karakol Industrial Park buildings. So there was actually two manufacturers in the beginning who agreed to do this, and you can see them in the pictures in the pictures from the old days. There are actually two Korean manufacturers sitting at the table signing this agreement with Bill Clinton, and one of them dropped out for reasons that nobody ever found out. But I mean, probably they had a feeling this wasn't going to work out. To make reliable power available to CIP tenants, okay, that's the manufacturer, and residents, the people to work in the thing, the U.S. government, working through USAID, funded construction, that's what I was just telling you about, of the 10 megawatt Karakol power plant that came online in 2012. The CPP is providing reliable electricity to all the tenants of CIP, as well as over 8,600 households, businesses, and government offices in the community surrounding the CIP. So these people previously either didn't have electricity or they had electricity by some other means. So by co-locating security assistance with economic development investments through the U.S. government-funded construction of a police station near the CIP, we ensured the nearby community now also benefits from consistent police presence. Well, how big of us? I mean, we built a community out of nothing. It's the least we could do to build a police station. Okay, beginning in May 2013, the U.S. government funded through USAID a 3-year operations and maintenance contract. Yes, okay, because we built it, and I mean, we built it. We didn't build it with them in mind. We built it with like electricity in mind. The objective is to have a financially viable mini utility that could be transferred at the conclusion of the implementation period to an appropriate private sector entity in consultation with the government of Haiti. So right now, I guess the US government is really paying for this electricity. The individuals who live in the community, I think I read in the last thing, they're barely paying for their own electricity. They have it like subsidized, and so I think the US government is paying for it. Oh, here it says, the US government will continue to work with all stakeholders to make the Caracol utility financially self-sustainable. Okay, so right now it's just like a huge charity project. We just built this whole thing and we're just giving them electricity up here in the north. For those people. These actions may include options to lower generation costs, adjusting all tenants' electricity tariffs upward over a period of time, as well as extended U.S. government support to plant operations and maintenance. Okay, so they're going to lower generation costs. I wonder why the generation costs are so high now. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe somebody could tell us. Adjusting all tenants' electricity tariffs upward. We're going to charge them more. Like I just said, they're being subsidized right now. As well as extended U.S. government support. So we're going to keep running this plant. We built a plant that they can't run. That's the bottom line. So options are being developed to make the mini utility attractive to private sector investors. I mean, the only way the utility is going to be attractive to private sector investors is if people can pay their bills, if there's enough people using the thing itself that it's economically beneficial. And see, that's not clear because they built this whole community kind of on a whim. So it's not really clear if people will move there. Okay. They haven't really yet. Some people have, but not very many. The growth and improved professionalism of the Haitian National Police are significant achievements in the post-earthquake period. That's good. The police added 3,000 trained officers. So they have 12,000. They improved their ability to restore order and control crowds, increase their capacity in investigations, leading to a pronounced reduction in kidnappings. I hope that that's the case, that it was the Haitian National Police that caused the reduction in kidnappings. I think partially it's that the foreigners left. I mean, a lot of the people who were being kidnapped were foreigners. But I don't know, that's not true too. I mean, a lot of domestic people are kidnapped, so I'm not really sure what that's about, but I hope that it's true, that it's the Haitian National Police. So the Haitian National Police also undertook some successful initiatives to manage its internal affairs, budgeting, strategic planning. They want to be 15,000 total. They want to take on increasing responsibilities to project security beyond Port-au-Prince, particularly as MINUSTA continues its drawdown of peacekeepers. They don't mention how long that drawdown will be. You know, it's just like this forever and ever drawdown. Haiti's president has promised elections in 2015, both the HNP and consolidating MINUSTA will face additional logistical and security-related duties associated with the elections. In the longer term, a more robust and professional HNP by itself, however, is not sufficient to ensure Haiti's stability. Ooh. Okay. The police will require reliable corrections and justice partners, sectors that currently lag behind police development. I mean, the justice thing is really, really bad. Prison overcrowding above 500% capacity. Yikes. And a soaring 73% pretrial detention rate. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Guilty until proven innocent. Are serious concerns largely caused by Haiti's outdated criminal procedure, ineffective judiciary, lack of political will by the government of Haiti to act on the issues. The United States will continue to urge the government to take decisive policy action to address pretrial detention and prison conditions. Okay. That's it. So I see these footnotes. Let me go back up to these footnotes. The U.S. government will continue to work with all stakeholders to make the Caracol utility financially self-sustainable. Footnote. The government of Haiti contributed $1.5 million to a fuel reserve fund, and the U.S. government agreed to fund operations and maintenance expenses through a utility management contract for the period 2013 to 2016 to cover initial operating funding for the mini utility. I think it's so interesting that they call it a mini utility. I mean, I agree that it's like not a huge power plant, but on the other hand, like, I don't know, when it costs like millions and millions and millions of dollars, so is it still mini? The fuel funds were depleted by August 2014, and the United States has requested the government of Haiti to replenish the account with over $2 million, the current estimate to cover the subsidy costs from October to September. The government of Haiti has agreed to provide the funds in the form of fuel supply to the CPP. So, okay, the government of Haiti doesn't want to give cash anymore. They're like, we get free fuel from Venezuela, so we would much rather just not free. I think it's not always free. It's like kind of like, maybe you could say at cost. It's pretty darn cheap. So yeah, that makes sense. Because of a lower interest in large clients to move operations to Caracol, and slower construction of park facilities, actual demands for the plant's generation has been much less than anticipated during planning. I love that this is, what the heck, this is in a footnote. So the large clients don't want to go to this imaginary place that we made called Caracol. That just, hello? I mean, how did they not think that was going to happen? I mean, what are the large clients? Even one of the partners dropped out right at the beginning of the project. Okay, and then slower construction of park facilities. Yeah, really slow. Actual demand for the plant's generation has been much less than anticipated during planning. So we spent so much money on a project that we really had no idea if it would work. So currently the total demand for electricity from the plant is about 20% of its capacity, over 60% of which is from off-site communes. So basically we gave electricity to a bunch of people who aren't in that park. 60% are just people out there. The major consumer of electricity, but it says the major consumer, so 60% is from off-site communes, but I guess still the number one customer is the anchor client, SIA, which has a low negotiated tariff for electricity as part of an incentive package for its $80 million investment in Caracol. So they're almost not paying for electricity. Customers outside the park are charged at the EDH tariff, which has not been adjusted since 2007 and is inadequate to meet the cost of generation. As a result, the Caracol plant does not cover its costs at this time. I mean, no kidding. Okay, let's look at the other one. These actions may include options to lower generation costs, adjusting all tenants' electricity tariffs upward. Any changes to the rate for SA will have to be approved by the government of Haiti and the IDB, International Development Bank, who are also signatories to the agreement. So that's kind of interesting to think about whether or not the International Development Bank would agree to raise their tariffs. I mean, obviously they signed on thinking that this was going to be something that it's turned out not to be. They don't have the port that they thought they were going to have. They don't have the staff that they thought they were going to have. The whole park, they said, just here is like really, really slow to be built. So I guess it's going to be hard to make an argument that we should charge them more. So anyway, this is the update on the Haiti strategy as annotated by Emily Troutman, and I blog at aid.works, so you can read more there. Thanks. Bye-bye.